honey. Okay, hold on.
Communities are in need. We get the like me to have one more minute.
Yep.
We need to serve in our own region.
We good?
Help the people.
No,
call
I
neighbors.
From the
just
lake
keep
shores of
talking.
Ohio, Michigan,
Okay,
Wisconsin,
testing, 1, 2, 3, testing, 1, 2, 3. Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Illinois and
Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3.
still can't hear them.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
Together, we can make a difference.
King Darius.
1, 2, 3, testing, 1, 2, 3. Good morning, good morning. Good morning, good morning. Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing, 1, 2. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Good morning, morning. Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Do we have him yet? Another channel. Okay. Keep talking, Darius. I just need you to keep on, babe. Do we hear him yet? Channel.
Good morning, good morning. Hello, good morning. Good morning, everybody.
Never been more
Yet another
opportunity
one.
to improve hiring practices and
Okay.
Good morning, good morning.
the workforce.
Hello, good morning, everybody. Good morning, good morning.
Amazing
I hope your day is well. I hope God is your source.
You hear
Good
me yet?
morning, good morning.
Not yet.
He was on another one. Keep talking, hon.
Good morning, good morning. Hello. Good morning, good morning. Good morning to you. Keep going. You got this big ass. Keep going. You'll get you through this. It's a promise.
Is he there yet?
Trust me. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Is he there yet? Alex?
1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Okay. I just put him on another channel.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Good morning, good morning. Good morning, good morning. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1.
So he's not there yet? Okay, well, that's better. I don't know what to do. Okay, how's that sounding? Okay, let me go back to that. Let me try Darius.
Hey there, I'm Lance Bass.
It's retesting 1, 2, 3. Good morning, good morning.
100 years, American
Top of the morning to you. Top of the morning to you.
That's it.
Okay. We did that 3 times, right? I went to that channel 3
the
times.
California wildfires.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
It's. I can hear him now.
Okay, great.
Provided
So we're
life-saving
good.
assistance for animals in virtually every major
All
natural
right.
disaster.
All right. Well,
If you're anything like me, your
eventually
pets
we
mean
got
the
it.
world.
But that was
And
the
if disaster
Kodak.
strikes,
And I went there
you want
3
to
times.
30 seconds.
All right.
To
Thank you so
prepare for an
much.
oncoming disaster,
Gonna
ensure
hurry
your pet has
cycle through
secure
this so we
and
can get to this.
up-to-date identification.
Darius, I need you out by about
And if you
6:18,
must
6:19,
evacuate,
okay?
remember to take your disaster preparedness kit with
You got it.
Okay, thank you,
To
sweetie.
learn more about disaster
Give my love to
planning and how to
the
keep your best
beautiful
friends
ladies
safe,
in your life.
please visit American.
10 seconds.
I will.
Okay. All right.
Stand
Okay,
by.
I'm hearing something in the background.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, where
Okay.
facts matter.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am breathing.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It is Thursday, July 20th. Wow, can you believe it? We're cycling through this summer. I'm Santita Jackson, coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you today. I want you to meet my morning stars, Andre and Dave and Shirley from beautiful Philadelphia. I love that girl. And sending a special shout out to Yvonne, who drove into the Push convention from New York. Hope she has safe travels back home. We've got Jewel from New York and Flora and so many of you joining us. Meet our morning stars. Obadiah, how you doing? Meet them over on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel and the Santita Jackson and Friends page on Facebook. It's a joy to be with you today. What are we going to be talking about? The Trump indictment. So call me. Call me. Let me know what your thoughts are at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. And we're going to be talking about home ownership. Any questions you have about home ownership, if you think you might be on the verge of foreclosure, if you need to clean up your credit, indeed, David Hochberg will be us today because he has a new credit card, a secured one, a credit card, not a debit card, that will help you to build or rebuild your credit. And then, of course, Dr. Max Wolf will be talking to us about the economy, about these interest rates and inflation. And are you seeing any relief? I want to know what your thoughts are. But first up, the Trump indictments. What will it be like to have a leading presidential candidate under indictment? How's that going to work? It could work, but we're going to see what your thoughts are. Are these indictments stealing his support? I mean, that is to say, making his supporters stand even more strongly for him. I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Everyone is talking about the Trump indictments. And so, I want to know that's at the top of the headlines today. Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. What do you think is going to happen there, everybody? What do you think is going to happen? Call me at 773 in Chicago. We're going to have a high today. It's going to be actually quite warm, 86 degrees, partly cloudy. In Minneapolis, 81 degrees, partly cloudy. In Major League Baseball, the Twins 6, the Mariners 3, the Cubs 8, the Nationals 3, the Mets 1, the White Sox 5. In the WNBA, the Sky will be facing off against the Mercury tonight at 9 p.m., and the Sparks will be facing off against the Lynx at 7 p.m. Everybody, that's going to be very, very exciting. And of course, the World Cup for women is kicking off as we speak. How exciting. America's team, led by Megan Rapinoe, are trying to do something that no team, male or female, has ever done before, and that is win 3 consecutive World Cups. Do you think they'll be able to do it? I sure hope so. Pulling for those ladies. Ukraine begins firing controversial U.S. provided cluster munitions at Russian forces. Those are some of the headlines today. And of course, yet another indictment is looming for President Trump. What will that mean? I want you to call me at 773-763-9278. According to the headline from the Washington Post, after fitful starts, the January 6th investigations of Trump hurtle toward charges. New protocols allow doctors to funnel abortion pills into U.S. regions with bans. Wow, wow, wow. Those are just some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. We have got you, Pastor Darius Brooks. Of course, you are on tour with the Tommies, yes, and you are also doing something so wonderful. We highlight it every week, and we want people to know that there is help out there, that there is food out there for you if you need it. And so just very quickly, where's your church? How can we worship with you? And how can we get this food that you and this wonderful church, Grace Central, are giving away every week?
Santita, good morning. Church, 10216 South Kitchener Street, Westchester, Illinois, GraceCentral.net. It's right off of 290 in Manhattan. You could Google me, Darius Brooks, or just GraceCentral.net. And Tuesday was around the corner, all the way around. Wednesday for the seniors. And Santita, now we're giving out a sanitizer thing and a KN95 mask, because of the West Side overage and the flooding. So if you know anybody who needs the sanitizing, napkins or those things, and the KN95 mask, please let them know Great Central Church is here to help. We're here to supply. Santita, I love serving, which is what the message is going to be today about, which is why it's so much stuff going on. Santita, Psalm 73, 1-3 says, truly God is good to Israel, even to such as are of a pure, clean heart. But as for me, Santita, I'm about to run. My feet almost stumbled. My steps had nearly slipped. I was envious of the boastful foolishness. when I saw the prosperity of the wicked. My God, my God. Santita, I wanted to give a thought today when my motivation for serving him is wrong. Santita, one who is afraid of doing godly things always does too little. To achieve all that's possible that God has, we must attempt the impossible. With man, impossible is impossible, but with God, Santita, impossible is possible. Your vision becomes your potential's worth. When you learn to be comfortable with what you want, it's never God's very best. With God, the best jobs haven't been found. With God, you have not done your best work. Everyday relationships cannot ultimately satisfy. Believers must not stay in the shadow, but stretch in the light of God's work. A person who expects anything will never be disappointed. Santita, the only way to discover the limit of the natural is to go beyond the natural into the supernatural, which is God's word. Ask yourself, is there anything really too hard for God? Santita, I was just talking to you a second ago, and I heard you say something. You are always spitting out words of wisdom, and I think you be knowing. I heard you just say someone great, but right after you said that, you said that they are necessary. Santita, girl, that thing hit me like on a brick this morning. What are we doing that we're not just doing good stuff, but what we're doing necessary? It will never be who I want to be until I am doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Santita, I'm going to close with this. It's not the one with the fewer thorns, but that which bears to produce roses. You are the best person to do what God has called you to do. And when we reduce that to what we desire, we always miss the mark.
Amen to that. Amen. Amen. Thank you so much. You know, we love your words of wisdom and love your enthusiasm, the joy that you get from serving and from worshiping. How can we worship with you on Sundays so we can catch some of this fire? And how can we get this food?
Great Central Church every Tuesday from 5 till 7. Please, we give away $200 to $300 worth of food. Have not stopped a year before the pandemic. And on Wednesdays for seniors, if you know anybody who can't get out, Wednesdays from noon till 2, we serve as well. Our worship service is on Sundays from 10:30 till noon. I'm just getting back in town. Last week, we was out of town touring the Texas area, Santita. And that's a young man who listens to you every day. His name is Clyde Williams. And he said, would you please tell Santita that I love her? He owns a hardware store in Oak Park. And he told me to tell you he listened to you every morning, God said.
Oh, Clyde, I'm sending you much love. Thank you so much, Pastor Brooks. Thank you for asking him to listen to the show. I know you are our ambassador out there. We just love you. Pastor Darius Brooks. Yes, that Darius Brooks from the Tommies. I love you, Pastor Brooks. We've got Dr. Shanina Knight, and got to get her out to your church when we get her to Chicago, as we're talking about prevention. Oh, yeah, we got it. I was talking about her with several people this week, with the governor of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa. They were so pleasantly surprised to know that someone like Dr. Knighton exists. And I was speaking with her about Dr. Damon Arnold, who I'm going to see a little bit later, the former head of the Illinois Department of Public Health, veteran, University of Chicago, got another degree from there, he's done stuff at Harvard. He's just one of the most esteemed healthcare professionals in the world, but he's got such a heart to serve. And I said, we've got to get Dr. Knighton out here so that people can know more and more and more about her work. Dr. Knighton, what's on your mind this morning?
Good morning, Santita. How are you?
It's great hearing your voice.
Thank you. And good morning, Pastor Brooks.
Good morning. Good morning.
So Santita, I think one of the big things to actually discuss today is going to be, I'm going to just stick with laundry for a second. Reason being is we oftentimes do not think about the fact that clothes are the most contaminated when they are wet. And we don't think about the importance of cycles. And when I'm saying cycles, like let's say on the actual washing machine when we are laundering our clothes, So, for example, individuals may think that the minute that they put the clothes in the washing machine and they put it on the cycle that they are clean, but it does depend on what it is that you're washing. And so we assume that after, let's say, we've left, and I'm specifically speaking of even to like healthcare workers right now, or someone that may work in sanitation, someone that may, do some sort of, let's say, cleaning or environmental cleaning, is that they'll actually take their uniforms home, and sometimes it's about handling them. So if you're not handling them properly, and let's say you are putting them in a bag and then you're putting them in the washing machine, and then from the washing machine you're handling them, but you're not washing your hands in between, clothes are the most contaminated when they are wet. And so while we may think that putting them in the cycle and them being clean, even if you're washing clothes, let's say on a warm temperature or on a cold temperature, that's still sometimes not enough to kill the bacteria. So when you see sometimes that people have, like, let's say detergent where it'll actually wash and get the stains out of the clothes, getting stains out of the clothes sometimes is not necessarily sanitizing the clothes. And so in environments where you know that you'll come in contact with, let's say, fungus, you know that you're going to come in contact with bacteria, you know that you're going to come in contact with, let's say, viruses, those are times of where you will want to actually make sure you are using the sanitation cycle. An example of that as it relates to, let's say, someone's home that might not be in those work settings. Let's say if you are someone doing your own house cleaning and you are cleaning the toilet, which we know can contain E. coli. Let's say if you are cleaning your dish rag, these are things that will require you to put your washing machine or make sure that you're using a sanitizer to actually clean the items that are doing the cleaning. Otherwise, what happens is you're just spreading around germs. I know we've talked in the past about reusable items and single-use items. And while someone may say it sounds like single-use items are safer, they might be safer, but they're not environmentally friendly. So if you are going to be using, let's say, reusable rags to clean and sanitize your home, it is very important that you are actually making sure that you are sanitizing the materials that you are cleaning these items with. Otherwise, what you find is that you'll just be spreading germs around unknowingly.
You know what I do? I also let my washing machine cycle so that I can clean it out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because, I'm thinking, you're washing dirt. Where does the dirt go? Where does it go? Well, you got to clean that out. It's just like you have to clean out the filter in your dishwasher. You got to, but these are things that we don't really think about. Of course, they're in the instructions, right? Who reads that? You just want to press the button and make the thing go. I'm not mad at you. Ooh, Dr. Shanina Knighton, everybody. Dr. Shanina Knighton. Hey, Dr. Nina. That's her handle on in social media, HEYDRNINA. Think about this, everybody. Cleaning, sanitizing, there's a difference. Let's talk about this target letter sent to former President Donald Trump. It lists categories of charges that he could potentially face, including conspiracy to defraud the United States of America. What will that mean? What could a looming third indictment mean for him? We'll talk about it. And Beth from Minnesota, girl, you're going to open up the next segment, so stay right there. Back in just a minute. Dr. Knighton, how you doing, hon?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm going to introduce you to Dr. Arnold, and he's someone you should know. Okay?
Yes.
Yes, he's someone you should know. Someone you should know. So just go on and get ready, kid. Some of these people, and when they hear about you, they're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. Had no idea. So just give me one moment. I'm doing several things at once. Okay. So, but how's your family?
Oh, they're busy, but this week nobody's been me busy. I think I told you on the next self-care trip where I get right with me and just really be on my own agenda, and I'm happy about that.
Bless your heart. I heard that. I heard that. Bless your heart. Oh, sometimes we forget our parents' first names are not mommy and daddy. Oh, hilarious.
Yeah.
You do forget that. There are times you're like, oh boy, there are times. Dwight, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, how you doing? Dr. Knighton's there. So you can say hello to her.
How you, Dr. Knight?
Good morning. How are
How
you?
you doing? I'm doing pretty fine. Thank you.
Good. You know, I always laugh and Peter with that.
What you say, hon?
I said I'm always laughing at you. And
Oh, me and my little chugga wugga. Oh,
it
God.
cracks me.
I get that thing going. And then because I keep cycling through the news and find stories throughout the show. And so I'm printing and then, but I'm going to go on and get a laser jet the next time. A friend of mine has a warehouse and he was like, look, what do you want in here? Wasn't that sweet?
Reverend Yuri's on.
Okay, Reverend Dr. Yuri, how you doing?
Good morning. How are you?
Doing great. You know what? I have Dr. Shanina Knight, and she's just listening to us right now. But she's the infection preventionist who Dr. Deborah Holden brought into our presence. Mm-hmm. And she's someone you really need to, we need to have her, we need to really pass her around our network because infection prevention is a really, really big deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we just don't know about it.
Absolutely.
We just don't know about it. And the things that she was able to share with us at the height of the pandemic were just life-changing. And we were just talking, she was just helping us to understand how really
1 minute, no answer from Miss Wells.
Oh, okay. How unclean our wet clothes are. There's just so much that we don't know, that we don't think about.
Yeah, Dr. Knighton changes the way we do a lot of things.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Thank you.
And it's so necessary. So necessary.
30 seconds.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Ten seconds.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Stand by.
All right.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am breathing.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's Thursday, July 20th, 2023. That's my honey bun in the background, Helga, my girl. Pass out all this information. We're going to be talking about getting your credit right with David Hochberg. He has a credit card now. You got to rebuild your credit. Because they're now about to connect your credit to a social score. It's going to determine what we will and will not be able to do. It's a real, real big thing. So everybody just think about that. But right now, let's talk about this Trump indictment. Let me open things up on WCBT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, with Beth from Minnesota. Beth, how you doing?
Yeah, good.
It's great hearing your voice, Beth. What do you make of this target letter from the Department of Justice?
All I can say, as I said a year ago, is that Trump is getting more than what he's bargained for. and it feels so good to see him being the one, that has to worry about all this shit.
Oh,
It really does.
oh, yeah.
But, I'm real hyper anxious to see him be the one that gets locked up. But I'm just annoyed that, that so much pussyfooting around is going on. But I feel good about the fact that Jack Smith, is taking this seriously.
Okay. Have you been watching the other hearings? I mean, because it seems like everybody's being investigated.
No, I haven't.
I would, you know what? I would urge you to do that because I think that we need to understand
the hearings. You know what?
Mhm.
I don't. You mean like on C-SPAN?
Yeah. But I only say that.
I don't. When I quit getting Xfinity, I quit having access to that, and I don't know what channels I would get that on. And where I live, I could possibly get help getting access to get my TV going.
Okay, well, if you can get it online, if you can get them online, because it's important to hear the whole conversation, because it helps you to understand, just where everybody's coming from, because there is just a lot that is out here. And because you have to wonder, what is it that the Trump supporters are seeing?
Yeah,
right?
Well, for example, I watched the hearings about January 6th, to keep myself grounded and in the loop on that. And that did help me to know what the hell was going on. But I don't know what, I'm thinking of getting Dish TV, but I'm going to have to see what I'll start getting, since I lost my job.
Well, see what you can, I was about to say,
getting RSDI.
See what you can see for free. Maybe that is
for free.
Yes. Well, I'm going to look into that, and we're going to talk about that. What you don't have, the things that you will not have to pay for. And if you can go to the library and go online, you can go to cspan.org and watch all this stuff without paying for it. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to get my TV working again right now at this moment.
Okay. Well,
but I know what's going on through the, what you're hooked up with back here at home.
Okay. Beth, I'm so glad that you called.
But I haven't been watching any hearings.
Well, when you can, because there's a lot that's going on out here. I mean, this target letter. What do you think is going to look like, very quickly before you go? What do you think is going to look like to have these indictments? He will be indicted several times, running as the front runner for the presidency. What is that going to look like?
President, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm confused about how many times he's been indicted. I've heard that it's been 2 to boot.
This will be the third.
The third, okay. So it's third time at least.
Yeah, and he will be running. He will be. You can't make this stuff up. He will be running.
No, you can't.
He can. He can run. He could actually be president. He can be elected.
While he's in prison.
Yeah. Well, I think they would have to make some changes. But stay right there. I've got Dwight McKee, who kind of predicted that all of this was going to happen, and Reverend Dr. Todd Yeary, Esquire. He's a lawyer. This target letter from the Department of Justice. What did that mean, Todd?
Got to get to the button. Good morning, Santita, to your guest. The target letter means that former President Trump has received information from the special counsel that says there's evidence that would indicate that Mr. Trump may have committed a crime and is a putative, right, a reputed defendant in a case that is yet to be filed. So basically, it is the heads up to say to the former president that an indictment is coming or a request for an indictment is pending. So what we saw in Florida a few weeks ago with the documents case. This time will have to do with, and I believe this is the fake electors part of the case, in terms of a conspiracy of some sort that ties itself to the 2020 election.
Call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Let us know what you're thinking. Who's going to have the last word? Will it be the voters or will it be the juries? What say you, Reverend Dr. Uri, before we pivot to Dwight McKee, who foresaw all of this? Before the 2020 election. It's amazing.
Well, answer is D, right? All of the above. It very well could be that while some of these legal proceedings are moving through the courts, the primary elections will be taking place in the states. And so this is really going to be a race to January 20th of 2025. If none of the federal issues are resolved and he were to win the presidency, once he were to take office, this is where the question came up before. Might he use the absolute pardon power of the presidency and try to apply it to himself as it relates to the state charges? Will make noise, but the states do not have any authority that would impact his ability to operate as the president. He would just have some sort of conviction if he were to be convicted on his record for a state charge. So I don't see those being anything other than cannon fodder. It'll be interesting to watch, and it'll add to the news cycle. But it is really Jack Smith cases that have the greatest potential harm. And one particularly on the documents case is that if you were to be convicted of possessing government documents, that is the one charge that upon conviction actually disqualifies you from holding federal office ever again. That's the case I'm watching. The rest of them are interesting. The one that creates the greatest peril for Mr. Trump are with the federal indictment that came down a few weeks ago.
Dwight McKee, your thoughts about this? This is playing out almost the way you and Robert Patillo said that it would.
Well, you asked the question, which will have the last say: the
voters or the juries.
Or the jury.
That's right.
And the fact of the matter is, they're one and the same. Is that the jury pool will come from the electoral pool. And so there will be Trump supporters on the jury, I'm sure. It'll be very difficult in, the city, a state like Florida or New York, wherever the trial is, to not have Trump supporters. So you run the risk of jury nullification, or you run the risk of juries just being held up by not having enough votes to convict him. My primary fear I talked about a couple of months ago is I was afraid we would make a monster martyr. And that's kind of what I see happening there, is that his base become more retrenched. The premise that the criminal investigations are being weaponized have been reinforced. And it seems as if that they are using the government to persecute him for the sole purposes of him not being able to run for president. Whether he's guilty or innocent, it is the perception of a lot of his base. So his base becomes more entrenched. He's able to raise more money because they see him as a martyr. And it reinforces from him the fact that Biden and them are so afraid of him becoming president that they will sabotage him by any means necessary. It's a very stark contrast to what's happening on the other side with these hearings, where these RIS guys have come out and said that Biden has gotten special treatment that they've never seen before. And so you have real competing interests. One saying this guy is being targeted, and the other one saying that Biden's crowd is being negotiated and dismissed for their infractions. So it's only going to exacerbate the tension between the two groups.
When you look at the hearings and when you look at the indictments, does it reinforce the sense that this is a very politicized process? Because to me, indictments and investigations are always very political in nature, because you look at people who are protected, you look at people who get indicted, you look at war criminals, people who admit, you look at Kissinger, George W. Bush. There are places around the world they cannot travel, they cannot enter because they are considered to be war criminals, but they're untouchable, at least in the West. What about this? I mean, is the sense? Do you think that there's a growing sense across partisan lines that that these tools are being used, are being that there's just political weaponization? I mean, as we have seen in the civil rights movement and with freedom fighters, not just here but all around the world, Dwight.
Absolutely. It's an arguable perception. I mean, it's not an abstract perception, because when you look at the charges, and many of them seem to be a little contrived, then it does seem that this guy has been targeted for reasons that are political rather than actual. For example, the fact that he may be charged with manipulation of government papers. Well, you charge him at the same time Biden has papers in his garage and his offices at the school, and you dismiss those. So it looks like a double standard. At the same time that the former vice president has his own papers, it looks like a double standard, particularly of those who are already susceptible to believing that the government is being weaponized. And so this campaign, this election will be won or lost with the margins, with those who have been either neutral or those who have been tried to be fairly objective in the process. Which way they lean will determine who's going to become the president. And if you were to alienate them and then believe into these conspiracies, you may be gearing the election up for Trump. That's my fear.
What say you, Reverend Dr. Yuri Esquire?
Well, I agree certainly with Dwight McKee has said. The comparison that he raises about the system being weaponized, I want to be real clear that the accusatory system that we would call the criminal legal system, some folks call it the criminal justice system, is a weapon. The issue is, who do they use the weapon against? Typically, we see it in instances where persons who really don't have the ability to defend themselves having to fight back against the full weight of the government, whether it's state or federal, leaning into it. So let's be real clear. There is no neutral criminal justice system. It is absolutely a weapon. It is the weapon that the government uses to punish. It's the weapon that the government uses to deter. It is now, in this sense, as a lot of folks and what Brother Dwight has said, it is a weapon that is being used that many folks feel improperly to carry on a political purpose. This is a political persecution in the eyes of many, and it continues to unfold. Here's where I think it comes down, and I do believe it's going to be on the margins. It typically is. It's not who's on the far left or who's on the far right. Those who are D's, those who are R's, typically vote for folks who hold down their extreme views of whatever the party standard should be. But once you get past the primary season, if Donald Trump makes it to the nomination, the question then becomes, how do you reach the folks on the margins? And those very often are folks who tend not to go with the extremes of either party. That's going to be the interesting thing. So his goal is to raise the money, get through the primaries, make it to November. If he can delay, particularly the federal trials, the state trials, I don't think he's really worried about. In terms of the harm that they could do to his political aspirations, it'll be inconvenient on his schedule. But if he can defer these long enough to get past November of next year, then I think what you will see is this is a race to January 20th. And that's the only thing that I think ultimately Donald Trump is after. If he can win the presidency and be sworn in at 12 noon on January 20th of 2025, they will have the pardon papers ready at his swearing in. He will sign them before he gives his speech. And then you will see a different fight in terms of what happens if they're able to get a conviction, as Dwight has said. Now, the one case that's coming, it will be interesting to see whether or not that's filed in D.C. Mm-hmm. If it is filed in D.C., then the federal jury will come from the district. And that might lead to a different conclusion when it comes to whether or not you get a conviction.
Well, I mean, they did it to my brother. They moved Jesse's trial, or what they thought would be a trial, from Chicago. They moved everything to Washington because they did not want his constituents or people who they thought might like him help him here or view him, through a deeper, broader context. So, I just see this all as being very politicized, and I think that's the danger of it. It doesn't look clean. Angela Burns, however, says it's not a double standard, Dwight. She said Trump stole the documents and didn't want to give them back. Dwight McKee.
The perception is, well, it is or not, it's the perception is what counts. And for those the difference between Trump stealing the documents and Biden borrowing the documents is a matter of perception. Because Biden didn't give his back until he was discovered. And they don't know if he's given all of them back. And then you look at the testimonies yesterday from the guys at the IRS. One of the guys at IRS said he's been there 15, 16 years, and he's never seen anybody treated like this on these kind of charges. And so it seems to be a double standard. I think that with Manson putting pressure on Biden from the right, Cornell putting pressure on Biden from the left, this aggravation of the war in the Ukraine, this inability to deliver on some of the promises, particularly the young people being forgiven of their debts, or their school debts, and Biden kind of sacrificing the poor on the debt ceiling issue, I think he may be kind of against the ropes. And there is a fear that unless Trump is taken out, then he could win. And that's not my fear. I'm sure that's the perception of a lot of people that's looking at this.
So, I mean,
which way it'll take them, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Whether it'll take them against Trump or for Trump or against Biden or for Trump, I'm not sure. But I know people are processing this as real information.
I mean, and as they process this, what are they concluding about the system overall? Dwight, and then you, Reverend Dr. Urey.
Just what Dr. Urey said, that it's been weaponized, and whoever is in charge of the government decides who is going to be weaponized against. I don't think that's a secret. I think selective prosecution is the rule of the day.
I don't think everybody knows that, Dwight. I really don't think everybody knows that. I mean, because now you hear those of us from the civil rights movement and people on the left have said, hey, this has been happening. This is what this is. And the right dismissed us. Now the right are saying, wait, do you see what they're doing? And I'm like, this ain't new now. I mean, because even, when you're looking for traitors in the United States, we don't go after people in the right wing. We bring Nazis here. And we've been fighting for them over in the Ukraine. And that's not another story for another day. That's happening in real time. I'm just wondering, where all of this can go as people are watching the politicization of everything. Dwight, you, and then you for the close, Reverend Dr. Urey.
Well, Elvis was sleeping with a 13-year-old while he was in the army.
14.
And they saluted him.
14.
Whereas Dr. King was railed for income tax evasion when he was not making any money. I mean, it's always been a political calculation of who you went after and who you didn't go after. You know, they took out the boxer who had given all his money to Joe Louis.
Yeah.
Joe Louis, when he had given all his money to the army.
Wait a minute. At the height of his physical powers, he was fighting in the army, doing exhibition matches during the Second World War. That was his contribution to the war effort. And then what happened?
And then they sued him for the money that he gave to them.
Oh my gosh!
And sent him in debt. I mean, so it's always been political, and it's always been who's in charge. So that is really not new. And so it is not. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Urey.
Oh no.
You want to speak to Urey?
I just have a couple minutes, but I wanted Reverend Urey. No, look.
Well, there are a couple of things that we have to remember about the system. Let me kind of give you two things that might help us frame this. Number one, there are two other types of immunity. We often hear about qualified immunity with government officers, particularly police. There's also prosecutorial immunity for prosecutors and judicial immunity for judges that is basically absolute. All right, so the gatekeepers of the system have no accountability that can be brought to bear by individuals if we believe they overstep their powers. The issue of the system has always been this. We are seeing a fight between and amongst the entitled class. These are folks who would presume, by virtue of offices they've held, positions they hold, relationships that they enjoy, that they are beyond the reach of the system. So the son of a president, a former vice president, a former this, a current that. These are all folks that we are looking at who operate with the sense that they are cloaked by a protection that says they would never have to deal with the system. This is a bigger fight than just the intrigue. This is a reminder, do not try this at home, because if you're not in that class, the weapon of the government is coming to get you.
Democrat or Republican, everybody. Democrat or Republican. I think that's where we have to grow up in our politics and look at a system that plays this game with people, really. And so, we'll see where all of this goes. And I thank you, Dwight McKee, and I thank you, Reverend Dr. Todd Urey, Esquire, for helping us to understand it, because I think we need to watch this. And I think that it's important for us to watch all of these hearings. Dwight, about 30 seconds, you've been watching the hearings and you've been watching these looming indictments. Why have you been watching these Republican-led hearings?
Oh, because, they can be, again, the difference is that if they are able to get enough evidence about the president's son, and can tie him into that can swing the pendulum to the other side. And that's what their strategy is going to be.
Well, stand
So
by.
I think we have to look at both sides of this thing.
I think you got to look at it globally, everybody. One side, the other side, and all the little cracks in between. Let's talk about
Get your popcorn.
Ooh,
Get your popcorn. It's going to be interesting.
And those Raisinets too. If you like salt and sweet, get it all. Get it all, everybody, because it is on and cracking. Let's talk about home ownership, and let's talk about getting a credit card when your credit is bad. It can happen. David Hartford's got one. He's going to help you to get one too. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show, and Dr. Max Wolf talking about inflation. In just a moment, in a few on the Santita Jackson Show. Dwight, I want you to respond to Osa, who said, "You are wrong, Dwight. Trump is not being charged for taking the documents. He is being charged for refusing to turn them in when asked. Can you tell us when Biden and Pence refused to turn anything in? There is no double standard there. I encourage you guys to read the indictment." Dwight?
That's why I talk about perception.
Mm-hmm.
Perception ain't got to be reality. It's perception. And the perception from the average person that's not going to read the indictment is that one is getting charged for something that the other one did is not getting charged for. And so, same thing about his son's indictment. When you look at how other people who committed those crimes have been charged, when you look at what's the actor's name that got 7 years for tax evasion? Wesley Snipes.
Wesley Snipes, yeah.
Wesley Snipes. You look at Wesley Snipes with the same charge, got 5 or 6 years in jail, as opposed to Biden's son, who has accounts all over the world that he didn't pay taxes on. It is the perception of weaponization of the law. And so very few people are going to read between the lines in this.
But Santita, here's the distinction, right? And I hear what the gentleman is saying. That's what the indictment says. The statute says anyone who possesses, not who possesses and refuses to return.
Mm-hmm.
And so the statute gives wide latitude. There could have been charges with all of the persons found to possess government documents in an unauthorized way, because prosecutors have discretion. Here's Big Brother Dwight's point. They get to determine who gets charged and who doesn't. But the statute says nothing about if you have them and refuse to take
Mr. Hochberg's on.
The statute says if you have them, period.
Well, I mean, where is this going, man? I mean, because, the fact is corporate media are not reporting on these hearings, these Republican-led hearings. And a whole lot is being dropped in those hearings, a whole lot. And I think that people are not being well served by not hearing everything that is all of these charges and issues that are being bandied about, right?
Let's sit outside. You're not doing outside?
Yeah.
Okay, everybody, I can hear something in the background. Remember.
Doesn't matter.
Okay, David, I think I hear you and you have background noise.
Oh, I got background noise? All right,
yes.
Let me go. Tell you what.
No, I just hear, I think you're talking to someone in the background.
Yeah.
No, you're good. I'm going to go to a more quiet place.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yeah, Santita, where this is going is the issue of really the perception, right?
Mm-hmm.
The system and how we respond to it comes down to a matter of perception. That perception is informed by where you find yourself in the system. If you get caught up in it, your perception is different than if you control it. And so this is coming down to shaping the perceptions to see who's going to respond and determine who gets to be in charge of the force of the government for another 4 years. That's what this fight is about. And it's coming from all four compass directions to a television, an internet feed near you. I'm going to get my popcorn, lots of butter, and I'll get you some Raisinets too.
I like the mix. Hey, I'm just saying. Okay, David, I can hear something in the background. You want to put us on mute until you get things settled?
No, I'm outside.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to find. Yeah.
Okay.
Hang on.
No worries.
Trying to go to a more quiet place.
Okay, no worries. Okay, well, because when I hear this, people think that you're being partisan and that you're actually quietly supporting Trump, and I'm like, no, that's not what I'm doing. I think that what people need to understand is the politicized nature of all of this. You say what you will about this moment, we're seeing what this is. And I think we've all got blind spots, and I think that that's dangerous. If you want to be fair, just be fair. Okay? It is politicized. It is, and that is not good. Okay, I need you to get to it. You're getting to a quiet place. right?
Yeah, and I'm walking away from these crazy dogs. Hang on.
Yeah, we got the dogs now.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So,
Oh,
and,
right.
and that's a perfect image. When you try to find a quiet place, sometimes the dogs will get you. And we're seeing that in the political reality.
You know, it is.
And the
You
dog
know,
weighs 3 pounds. Yeah, the smallest dog's got the biggest bark.
well, you know, I think people need to understand. If you need to look at all these hearings, you need to look at everything. You know, watch everything because there's a lot that's being discussed when they talk about health. These hearings, there's a lot that's being discussed when you're talking about how different people are being handled. There's a lot that's being discussed, and you need to know what's being said all over the place. That helps you to provide a healthier counter if you want to, a healthier counter argument. But you can't do it just knowing one side. That is not where we need to be. That's not where we need to be because all this stuff is politicized. And they all have a gentlewoman and gentleman's agreement about how they're going to protect each other.
1 minute.
That's what they do.
And I think what Yuri said is real important about the difference between the statute and how the statute reads. Because that's totally a political decision.
Absolutely.
It's whether you want to indict somebody who held on as opposed to somebody who didn't give back. Is if the statute says that either one of it, both are illegal. And so that's a totally political decision.
And you don't know what all this is, everybody, because if you look
30 seconds.
You know Melania didn't pack any boxes, you know Trump didn't, and you know Biden didn't either. So a whole lot of people are in this. So when you get to that level, the people who run your office, they're the powerful ones. Trust and believe. The most powerful person on Capitol Hill next to the congressperson in either house is their administrative assistant, the person who runs the office. The chief of staff
10
is
seconds.
at the White House. Chief of staff is the gatekeeper. Stand by, everybody.
Stand by.
I can still hear background noise, David, even when you're walking.
Yeah, I'm trying to find a quiet place here. I'll put you on mute.
We can change the world. We can change the world. Change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world. I am breathing.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Call me at 773-763-9278. We've been listening to your thoughts about the looming Trump indictments. You received a letter from the Department of Justice. I want to know what your thoughts are about that. It's a target letter. They're letting him know now you might be charged with this. And finally, Willis down in Georgia said, "Hey, we need to get our police ready because it looks like she might be indicting him too. He could have 3 indictments: running for president and leading the Republican field. He's raising more money. He's growing. So we've been talking about that. We'll take your calls about that no matter what we're talking about. As we talk about home ownership, as we talk about getting a credit card with bad credit, as we talk about inflation with Dr. Max Wolf. So let's get right to it, everybody. In Chicago, we're going to have a high of 86 degrees. It will be partly cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 81 degrees, partly cloudy. Major League Baseball, the Twins 6, the Mariners 3, Cubs 8, the Nationals 3, the Mets. Well, they fell to the White Sox 5-1. All right, everybody. And Chicago, the Sky will be playing the Mercury tonight at 9 p.m. and the Sparks will be playing the Lynx, everybody. Major League Soccer, the America's team, women's team, they are trying to do something in the World Cup that no male team, no female team has ever done before. Win 3 consecutive World Cup championships. Megan Rapinoe and the American women, you better go. I'm pulling for you. A rare multiple shooting in the center of Auckland, New Zealand, just hours before the opening of the Women's World Cup, rattled the city as tens of thousands gathered to watch New Zealand play Norway in the first game of the tournament. 3 people died in the attack, God bless them, including the gunman, and several others were injured, according to New Zealand authorities. Legal experts believe a 3rd indictment is imminent for former President Donald Trump and could be announced soon. Trump said on Tuesday that he'd been named as a target of special counsel Jack Smith's investigation into efforts to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election and the events leading up to the January 6th 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol. Receiving such a notification is a procedural step that often leads to an indictment. A massive tornado in North Carolina severely damaged a Pfizer plant and several other structures, shut down a major interstate, and injured more than a dozen people Wednesday afternoon, sending them so much love down there. Around 340,000 UPS workers may go on strike at the end of the month unless an agreement on employees' contracts can be quickly reached between the company and union members. And those are just some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. We've been talking about your financial freedom, everybody. If you are a first-time home buyer, we want you to be a homeowner. And, we're going to be talking with David Hochberg very shortly about, just about how do you do that when your credit's bad? I mean, most people live from payday to Monday. So this money's not going far. So it's hard to keep good credit, particularly now, but you can do it. And you can get a credit card. He's going to tell you how. But I want you to know that if you're a first-time home buyer, which means you have not owned a home within the past 3 years, might have owned one 4 years ago, but in the past 3 years, if you've not owned a home, you might be in luck. You need to call Team Hochberg at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID. They're your trusted local lender, and they can help you to get a home. First-time home buyers made up just 26% of the market last year, down from 34% the year before, and the numbers just continue to fall. And Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are concerned, as well they ought to be, because the cornerstone of Americans' wealth is home ownership. What's going on, everybody? They want to turn these numbers around, so they're incentivizing home buyers with this first-time home buyers program. That is, they're going to offer lower rates to people who've not owned a home within the past 3 years. I didn't say 5, I didn't say 4. But if you have not owned a home within the past 3 years, you can take advantage of this program, perhaps. So if you live in the Chicago area and the total household income is under $105,700, this program might be for you. So please call David Hochberg and Team Hochberg at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, and see if this might work for you. You might qualify for some amazingly low interest rates, and this program can end at any time. So you need to try and call them today. If you have any questions about your home, about foreclosure, a looming foreclosure, all these things that can happen, you need to call them at 855-56-DAVID and get on the road to creating generational wealth. That is the deal. That's why Tulsa, Oklahoma, the bombing of it, and these other areas like Tulsa have been so devastating to the Black community because our attempt to establish multi-generational wealth was stopped. Well, you know what? You have a chance to pick up the pieces now and get a home. You can do that. And do that for yourself. Do it for your children and your children's children, because homeowners beget other homeowners. Call them at 855-56-DAVID, 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 or go to 56david.com. But I think you need to talk to somebody. David Hochberg of Team Hochberg, how are you? It's wonderful to have you here today.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
You know what? Let's talk about, as we've been talking about home ownership, you said, okay, there are a lot of steps that you need to take before you own a home. Yeah. And one of them is establishing your credit or reestablishing your credit. Some people have had to go into bankruptcy. There's so much that's going on. Bottom line, a lot of people have bad credit. What is good credit and what is bad credit? What are the numbers?
Yeah, before I get to that question, I just want to preface it with that 21 million Americans are credit invisible, and another additional 26 million Americans have credit that's unscorable. So they're walking around with credit cards and trade lines that they think they're getting credit for on their credit scores, and they're not. So we've got 47 million Americans right now that either have no credit or unscorable credit, and it's going to be impossible for those borrowers, prospective borrowers, those consumers, to get a mortgage in the future. So what is good credit, to answer your question?
What is unscorable credit?
That's a great question. I never heard of the term until I did a little research. Unscorable credit is you have a credit card in your purse, in your wallet, in your front pocket, in your back pocket that you are using that you think is earning you credit with all three credit agencies, TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax, but they're not. For whatever reason, they are not. You have credit that's not being reported to the credit agencies, and it is not scoring, and you're getting no credit for it, which is crazy. I had never heard of that until I started doing research on this topic. So what is good credit? What is bad credit? What is excellent credit? Anything above 700, Santita, is excellent credit. So that's an A plus, A plus plus. Anything between, let's just say, 660 and 699 is good credit. It's a solid C plus to a B plus. Anything below 660, you start getting into challenge territory. 620 to 659, that's kind of like C minus, because if you go to 619, you start getting into the challenge territory, right? 500 is a whole nother different level of challenge, and then 400 is a complete different rebuild. Okay, so what we've done to help consumers is bring credit empowerment to the communities. We recently had 2 weeks ago, this next Sunday will be 2 weeks. Pastor Demetrius Davis invited me to have a credit empowerment talk with his congregation via Zoom. And it was unbelievable. We spent over an hour, and we educated the congregants that wanted to partake in it as to what credit is, what is good credit, what is bad credit, how do you get good credit, what are the steps that you have to take to enhance your credit. And it was just eye-opening for not only for the pastor, but for also his community, which was on the backs of what we did last year with the congregation, with the congregants at Salem Baptist on the south side. So I'm offering this type of education, empowerment, free of charge to anybody, any organization, any church, any community action group out there that wants to bring credit empowerment. I had lunch with State Representative LaShawn Ford yesterday, and I mentioned to him the work that I did at Salem Baptist and the work that I did at City Point Community, and he's like, yeah, I'm all in. Let's get something going in Austin. So I'm working with him, following up with him today as to how we could get going with setting up credit empowerment talks with the community of Austin. So it's really great when you put something out there and people have that aha moment. You know what I mean? Like, wow, I didn't know that. Wow, really? I was told differently. Wow, I didn't know that either. Wow, really? I could do that? And it just opened up a lot of congregants' eyes as to what they can do to quickly enhance their credit scores or establish credit if you have no credit at all.
So what about, so what is it? I mean, because it just doesn't seem that this is, how do you rebuild your credit if you are in the 500 range, if you're in the 600
great
range?
Question.
I mean, what do you do? I mean, because you've been on the show before and you said, hey, don't use your debit card. That's not helping you. And people think
correct
that the debit card is helping them. They feel that because you're allowed to you can either use it the way you use your ATM, or you can use it as a credit card. At least that's what we're told.
Correct. So I changed my stand on the debit card, and I'm just going to change my message this way. I used to say, throw your debit card away. And then after talking with some consumers out there, they're like, well, that's the way I get cash. I'm like, okay. I was wrong. I shouldn't have said that. I'll correct my stance. Keep your debit card, but only use it to take cash out of an ATM machine if you're out and about and you need cash. To use it for anything else, you are just hurting yourself credit-wise. I'll give you a perfect example. I'll give you two perfect examples. I was invited to speak at the police academy at the College of DuPage. There were 84, 85 cadets going through the police academy at the College of DuPage. I was invited to speak to them about credit and housing when they graduate and become police officers or go out into the field and they want to move around, what it takes to get a mortgage. The first question I asked the police cadets was, how many, and they're all between the ages of 20 and 30, okay? So it's a younger demographic. I said, raise of hands, show of hands, how many of the cadets here in this classroom today are using their debit card as their primary source of credit? 95% of their hands went up. And I go, you are all putting yourself into jeopardy. I go, it's shocking that 95% of you have your hands up because you're in the law enforcement. They're all looking at me. I'm like, what happens when you lose your debit card? Somebody could take that debit card, assuming they have your PIN, and there's ways to get your PIN, go in there and they could completely bomb your account and pull out all of your cash. And then what do you have to do? You'll get it back eventually. You'll have to file a police report. It's going to take you 30 to 60 days to get the money back. In the meantime, you've got to feed your kids. You've got to make your mortgage payment. You got to make your rent payment. You got to take care of your aunts. You got to take care of your mother. You got to take care of your father. You got to buy clothes. You got to get the kids ready for school, right? You've got other bills to pay. You got to pay your gas, electric, and car. So what happens? You're out of money until the investigation's done, the police report's filed. You get to the bank, and the bank reloads your account, knowing that you did fraudulently lose your debit card. You lose your credit card. One call to your credit card company. Please shut my credit card down. I got my credit card stolen. I don't recognize that charge that just came through. What does a credit card company do? Automatically shut your account down, send you a new account. So you're at no risk to losing money out of your account by using your debit card, okay? Instead of using your debit card by using your credit card. So that's one example. Another example is, and the only reason I'm mentioning his name is because he gave me permission to use his name. There's a gentleman I met at another radio station doing a fundraiser by the name of Theo Coleman, okay? Mr. Coleman works for the Salvation Army. Mr. Coleman was incarcerated a couple of years back, and when he got out of jail, the Salvation Army helped him, gave him a hand up, and helped him get reconstituted into society. He appreciated that so much, he went to work for the Salvation Army, and now he is the inmate coordinator to transition inmates back into the real world. I went up to him after the fundraiser at Christmas time. We were doing a holiday fundraiser for them. And I said, hey, what I'm offering, this credit empowerment talk that I did at Salem, I brought that up as Salem Baptist as an example. Would that be something of interest to you and your community? And he's like, absolutely. But tell you what, let's use me as a guinea pig first. Okay. We took Mr. Coleman and the only reason I'm mentioning the scores is because he said I could, from a 557 to a 614 in under 6 months. And I told him in December, if he dedicated a year to me, I will get him into a position to buy a home. He lives in Gary. Okay. Now Gary's got its own set of challenges, but the good thing about Gary is you could buy a single family home in Gary for under $100,000.
Well, let me put a pin in that. Because Gary's challenges began when they got a black mayor in 1967, and there was white flight. And then the white people moved and created a place called Merrillville, Indiana.
Sure,
so
Merrillville, Indiana.
And the steel mills shut down in Gary. So all of the income, because this is where Joe Jackson and Catherine Jackson were able to get 10 kids in a teeny weeny little house, but they were able to feed them on his salary. Okay. So, I mean, it's, Gary didn't collapse. It was collapsed. I think it's important for us to state that, but please continue.
Okay. Yeah. But and he's still living there.
Yeah.
And he wants to buy a home with him, within his community. So I'm like, if you give me a year, I can't turn a pig into a princess overnight, right? It's going to take some time. If you give me a year and you're dedicated for one full year, let me use you as a guinea pig, so to speak, and show others that I could transform a 500 credit score into a 600, 700 in a year. He's like, I'm in. Okay, so what do? We opened up a credit builder loan with BMO that I've talked about before on the show. He applied. He had credit, which was great, but his wife also had better credit. So,
what is a credit builder loan, and how is he able to get it with poor credit?
Okay. That's a great question. So, a credit builder loan is BMO Harris gave him a loan. Okay, they took out a loan, gave him a loan in his name. It reported to TransUnion, Experian, Equifax. Leo paid into that loan every single month. It built up a payment history, on-time payment history, to show the credit bureaus, to show the credit agencies that he's now a lower credit risk because he's paying off an installment loan. All this loan is a savings account. So he opened, Theo opened up this loan, quote unquote loan. He paid into it for 4 or 5 months. At the end of the 4 or 5 months, which ended a couple of weeks back, he got the money back. So it's a savings account. He's paying into a savings account that BMO's reporting to the 3 agencies as a loan. After the loan is paid off, quote unquote paid off, it takes BMO 10 business days. Don't know why it takes so long, but it takes him 10 business days to give the money back to Mr. Coleman. Mr. Coleman then, per my instructions, turned it right around and opened up another credit builder loan. In the meantime, he was added to his wife's credit card as an authorized user, which I've mentioned before on the show, and he already had credit in his name, which he kept building and getting stronger. So within the next, I would say 6 months, 7 months, by the time we get to Christmas again, Mr. Coleman will have credit scores to take it from the 557. We're at 614 now. We're going to be from 614. If I had to guess, he'd probably raise it another 40 to 50 points by the end of the summer, beginning of the fall. Because every month that goes by, Santita, it's like eating spinach with Popeye. He's getting stronger. Now, for those individuals that have no credit and want to get credit, I've partnered with the Kane County Teachers Credit Union to start a branded Team Hochberg Fresh Start. I'm calling it a Fresh Start secured Visa credit card. As long as you're 18 years old, you can't get turned down for this credit card. So you're going to give, your listeners will give Kane County Teachers Credit Union, long name, $500 because it's a $500 minimum. Make a $500 deposit. Kane County Teachers Credit Union will give your listeners a Team Hochberg branded credit card, Fresh Start secured Visa credit card that they could go out and buy everything that they were buying on their debit card up to $500. And then what they're going to do is completely use that for everything that they buy and then pay it back every single Friday if they can, or pay it back every single time they get paid because you want to reload it. Because when you reload it, your credit utilization is low. So by showing that you're responsible, you show up on the grid, all 3 credit agencies will report it, and you'll start building your credit back. The best part about this is 3 things. You can't get turned down if you're 18. There's no annual fee whatsoever, 0 annual fee. And Kane County Teachers Credit Union will review these cards every 6 months to determine if the borrower is a low enough credit risk to convert the card from a secured credit card to an unsecured credit card, which will further enhance your listeners' credit scores. So if you have no credit or credit challenge, want to strengthen it, all your listeners have to do is go to 56david.com/fresh start, and we'll get them information on the credit card. 56david.com/fresh start. It's a way to begin rebuilding, enhancing of your credit.
Could they also call you? Could they also call you at 855-56-DAVID? Yeah. No, because some people...
absolutely. Or they could call me on my cell phone. I'll give you my cell phone as well. I don't care. You can give out my cell phone. 773-456-6526. You can either go to the website, 56david.com/fresh start. Call me 855-56-DAVID. Call me on my cell phone, 773-456-6526.
Okay. I mean, because we want people, when you come back, we want to walk through that. We want to continue to walk through that. Because
let me help your listeners. Challenge out there. If you want credit and you want to give me a year, I'll get you from the 500s like I'm helping Mr. Coleman up to the 600, 700 if you're dedicated and you want to do this. I will, and I'm not going to charge anything. I'll do it it's complimentary. I want to help listeners enhance their credit to buy homes.
Okay, well, let's get these credit cards, everybody. And they're credit cards, not debit cards. They're credit cards.
Nope, they're secured. Team Hochberg, Fresh Start, secured Visa credit cards. You could use them universally almost anywhere. Who doesn't take a Visa card?
Well, you know what? Call 855-56-DAVID. That's the number they're used to hearing. But what is your mobile number as well?
Yep. 773-456-6526. You can text me, call me, want to set up a credit empowerment seminar like I did at Salem Baptist and City Point Community. Love to do it in your organization as well.
Stay right there, everybody. More of all of this and more on the Santita Jackson Show. Stay right there because I want you to answer a question. Flora has one for you, David, during the break.
Okay.
David, Flora said, which is better, home equity loan or a credit card? Which has the lowest APR and interest rates?
If Flora could qualify for a home equity line of credit, it's much lower than a credit card. Absolutely.
Okay. And
if Flora needs help, you could connect me with her, and I'll connect her with my team at BMO, and they could help her.
Okay. Fantastic. And your number again is 773-456-6526.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, but also remember the number I give you all just about every day is 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID. Let's go on and do everything we can to build our credit. And I'm going to marry all of this to one file with you, David, so that we can get this going. Okay. And I think this is something that we absolutely have to push. You're welcome, Flora. Let's definitely push that. Okay.
Yes,
David,
you got it.
Because people will really appreciate that. It's
sure
something that they can wrap their minds around.
Sure. Anything I could do to help, let me know.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you for responding so late. We've had our convention, so I've been running way behind. So thank you.
No worries. Enjoy. I got to get upstairs to WLS. You have a wonderful day and have a great convention.
Well, we're done now. So thank you.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
All right, everybody. I hope that has helped you. He will be on in the next few days so that we can go on. Hey, Diane, do you think that might help you down in Texas? Might. It might. I don't know who still is, is my friend Max Wolf there yet?
Dr. Wolf is here.
Yes, I am. Good morning, madam.
Dr. Wolf, how are you, sir?
Okay. As far as I know.
And how is Miss Thea?
Good. She's, enjoying her new gifts.
Almost a teenager now.
So, yep.
Oh, man.
At least as difficult, disobedient, even if she is only 6.
Oh, man. Where did the time go? Can you believe she's 6?
Yeah. She tells me like every 30 seconds.
Oh.
She's been telling people she's basically 6 for a few months, so she's eased us into it.
Oh, bless your heart. That is so sweet.
I'm basically 6.
Oh.
Now she's 6. For a while, she was basically 6.
Well, of course. Now you just leave that baby alone. She's perfect. We have the same birthday. Come on.
Sure, that is a strong personal achievement of hers.
Oh my goodness. But I'm glad to hear your voice.
1 minute.
I am tired.
Likewise. Hope everyone's good.
Everyone is
On your
good.
end?
Let me know because Reverend has said that he wants to see you, so we need to arrange that.
Yeah, I
time.
will definitely make it there. I will definitely make it there this summer.
Okay, yeah, he definitely wants to see you.
He's probably confused me with someone far more appealing. Poor guy.
No. He knows what needs to happen. He knows that. Oh, Max.
30 seconds.
Your girl is exhausted this morning. Okay.
Late night or
just
not feeling well.
A late moment. I am wiped out. I've got a full next few days. And that's the thing.
10 seconds.
Is travel and everything or no?
Yeah, I am gonna have to.
Stand by.
Yeah, but that's all right.
This kind of weather takes a lot out of you too.
Change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am breathing.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It is a joy to be with you today. Of course, every Thursday at this time, we have Dr. Max Wolf, and I'm always so glad to have him with us. Happy birthday to his baby daughter. She and I share a birthday,
Thank
so
you.
that's a particular joy for me. And we were born at the same time, if you all can believe that. You just can't make this stuff up. And she's a glorious child. And love her, love her, love her. Everybody, let's
Thank
talk. Oh, no. You look, you're just so blessed. Everybody, let's talk about the economy. I mean, because indeed, the money or your money or the lack thereof is driving this election. And I have to tell you, I don't know about you, but my eyes cross when I hear about the Fed and, interest rates going up, they're going down, the ties between corporate greed and inflation, that is real. And we really need, one of the things that one of Dr. Wolf's gifts, aside from this just staggering intellect of his, is he has the ability to bring it down where the goats can get it. I think that's what they say. The old folks used to call it like that. So I'm appreciative of that. This is the headline from CBS News. Inflation is down. Here's what this means for mortgage rates. And people are saying that inflation is down. And in fact, we might not even have a recession because of the strength of the job market. What does all that mean? Because people out here are still struggling, suffering.
Yeah, I mean, I think the good news is that inflation that was really kind of getting into the painful zone or well into the painful zone for the average person has really calmed down. The relatively less good news is that we did that by slowing the economy overall. And so now you're asking the policymakers, principally the Fed, the Reserve Bank, to continue to raise rates to prevent inflation and hoping that that doesn't do what it often does, which is trip you over into a recession. One of the other pieces of relatively good news is the official job market still looks good. Now, that's definitely a plus any way you count it. I think maybe the more interesting thing is that the percentage of the people of our country who are in the sort of official job market seems to also be shrinking. So this is good news, but it's good news from a bunch of statistics that capture a majority, but a diminishing portion of the labor market, because so many people are cobbling together the best they can, as much of a livelihood as they can, with gig economy work and under the table work and barter and all this stuff. And that's still super important and valuable. But the systems that count and track the economy that we use, they generally don't count or track that. And so the sort of out of the frame, if you will, out of the photo is a big deal, right? That's what sometimes it feels like, that photo of somebody smiling and you can't see that off to the left there's a person standing there pointing a gun at them. That's an important piece of information in terms of the smiley happy photo, right? So I don't think it's quite that bad, but there's just a lot of out of frame, what you might call out of frame going on. And then the other thing is, if the economy is weakening and we're raising interest rates to slow it down, why weren't we worried about raising interest rates to slow it down when the price of investment assets was inflating and rich people were getting richer? We were fine with that.
So help me with that. Because
I don't have, that answer is probably more political than economics. It's just not a technical feature that's like, oh, look, the stock market's up 30% in a pandemic. But no one looks at that and says, oh, there's some undesirable inflation. But it's pure inflation. It's one share of the same company today versus a year ago, and now it costs 30% more. If the company's doing 30% better, great. But a lot of the companies weren't, right?
Yeah.
So that is inflation, and that's good inflation.
Or when the price of housing goes up, we say, oh, this is great. Now people have more wealth in their housing. We tend to forget that, 35, 40% and rising of the country are renting those places. And all these people saving for a first house or trying to afford a house, that isn't such good news, right? Because they're chasing something that's starting to drive away. If you already own it, great. And you're probably more likely to vote. So I kind of get it, but not great for the next generation per se.
Is there a connection between inflation and recession? Because I was struck as I was listening to different discussions early this morning about, well, the good news is this: we might not have a recession because the job market is strong. And yet they were still worried about the interest rates. Help me to understand that.
Yeah, there's an old funny saying in economics, which is it's a recession if your neighbor loses his or her job, and a depression if you lose yours.
Yes.
So when you say there's a recession or an economic event, there's always some subjectivity around it, right? We have a general sense of the economy doing better or worse, but that's an average. And averages, they don't always tell the full story. So if you're in a region that's doing well, it's going to feel good. If you're in a region that's doing not so well, it's going to feel bad, whether or not there's a recession, right? If you're in an industry that's in trouble, it will feel terrible, even if the economy is doing well. If you're in an industry that's doing well, it might feel pretty good, even if the economy overall is not doing well, right? So average stories are always to be understood in the context of take a whole lot of things that aren't similar and add them up and divide. So that has this fallacy of composition. The old joke we always use for teaching is the average American household has whatever 1.4 kids, but if you have 0.4 kids in your house, expect a visit from the police, right? This is not a good idea. It probably suggests something's gone pretty badly, right? So there are some issues with averages, right? But I do think that there's something a little bit unfortunate happens too when the inequality gets as big for as long as it is now, right? And that is largely just that.
Ooh, Dr. Wolf, are you still here?
I'll call him back.
Okay, well, he went down. Well, we've been talking about our money.
Dwight McKee's still on.
Okay, Dwight McKee, what do you talk to me? I mean, you tell me, is this economic discussion making sense to most Americans?
I think getting the rent paid and trying to get a bite to eat is what makes the most sense to most Americans. It's really not so much different than it was before when we were growing up, where you had one job for most of your life, and you could raise
Dr. Wolf is back on.
income.
Mm-hmm.
Now you really kind of get in where you fit in, and you may not be working the same job 3 years from now as you work today, and the job may not even be here in 3 years. And you may not change. You may change jobs. Because of the job that you're dealing with may not even be here. All of the actors, which is one of the great jobs, writers and actors for years in Hollywood, all of them are petrified because they think AI may steal their very jobs and their very likenesses beneath them. And so life now is so fluid and so
scary.
Aggressively fluid.
Oh yeah.
That I think people are just kind of holding on what they can from check to check.
Well, Dwight McKee.
Week to week.
Dr. Wolf is back. I mean, and I'm glad I'm glad that you heard him, because really that's what it is. Because a lot of the discussions that are being held by people in corporate media, they come from Goldman Sachs. I'm not mad at anybody. They come from the financial world. They come from secure places. They have health insurance. They're able to cover their rent, their mortgages, et cetera, et cetera. Most Americans, increasingly, that is not their reality. Dr. Wolf, I mean, Americans are struggling. I'm surrounded by them.
A fair number of those people probably don't have the security you think either. But if they say whatever their employer doesn't want, they'll have less security.
Okay.
So I mean, there's also
that.
I mean, look, for instance, New York has gotten so expensive that the boss of the person who used to have a stable life and buy a house can't afford that house anymore, right? Like a 3-bedroom middle-class house in a nice part of Brooklyn easily run you $4 million now with 25% down. So you got to walk in that room with 1.3 million saved up and an ability to pay $7,000 a month. Live there.
But how is that sustainable? How is that sustainable? I know we're kind of veering off a little bit, but I just have to ask you that.
Yeah, look, I'm not trying to turn the conversation into like pity and self-pity of the affluent, right? It's not sustainable. But it depends on what you mean for who. It's not sustainable for the mass of people, but it's sustainable for a small number of affluent, powerful people who are making the decisions for everyone now. I mean, we already see this. You can run for president if one or two old billionaires thinks you're a good investment and they're going to own you. And even if you're sort of an unambiguous clown who would have a hard time getting elected to the neighborhood association, you might be our next president. Right? I mean, it's gotten pretty extreme, right? You can go to space by yourself. You can get a couple other people to look at the bottom of the Titanic with you. I mean, it's or at least try to. The point is just that what money can buy seems to be ever expanding, and who has money is contracting, and the people who have money have more money. And that puts you on a certain setting, a certain footing, and just sort of pivoting off of what Mr. McKee said, which I think is interesting. One way that a coherent society tries to make things sustainable, if there is a sort of chronic insecurity in the weather, in the politics, and in the economy, which we now have, is to build a much bigger safety net, less the floor, right? And that's what you do with public transit and a real minimum wage that actually lifts people out of poverty, programs for upward mobility based on merit and hard work, but programs for upward mobility, better retirement system, all these kind of things that say, okay, the world is unstable and technology can be revolutionary, sometimes in very powerful, wonderful ways, sometimes very destabilized. How do we make it so that everyone doesn't become sort of a rat in the maze? Because otherwise it feels like there's less and less cheese and more rats in the maze. And I think we know that doesn't end so well.
What about the recession? I mean, what is recession?
That's less cheese than me.
To me, I mean, but the fear all throughout the year has been that we would have one, but now they're saying because the job market is strong, well, the good news is we won't have one. I don't see good news when they're talking about gas prices.
You won't have one.
Well, I'm just saying, there's a disconnect between what I'm seeing in corporate media, what's being reported, and what the lived reality, the lived experience that Dwight and I see.
That just depends on what you're looking at, right?
Yeah.
It's like the same stories. Maybe there's a community of people, I don't know, who have a lot of guns and are safer and don't have more shootings. But I've never seen them, and that isn't my world, right? But we hear about that world all the time. There may be a world, although I've never seen one as a macroeconomist, where the wealth does trickle down and pretty successfully. But I've never seen that world. And you haven't either. So, I mean, maybe there's somebody out there. There's a lot of creative people. I guess acid is big among the elite now. Who knows? But the point is that something can be an overall state of recession, and you may or may not feel it. Something can be an overall state of boom, and you may or may not feel it. The question I would ask when I'm in these sort of debate scenarios and someone talks about this is, ask yourself if you were invited to the party. If you weren't, then this boom and bust cycle, they're not talking about you. But, the good stuff doesn't roll downhill. The bad stuff does. So if it rains on the top of the hill and you live on the bottom of the hill, you can't be down there being all arrogant. It's like, oh, it's not raining down here. It's coming, right? But if it's sunny on the top of the hill, you might still live in the shade.
Why did that strike you, Dwight?
Oh, it was just so well stated, and it's a real fact, is that it's and what's the sun today may be a scorcher tomorrow. I mean, so when you look at what's happening with the weather, that Florida, which was the sunshine state, a year ago at this time, is now on fire. Phoenix, which was the sunshine state, is now on fire. And so even the sunshine is relative to what else is going on. When you look at San Francisco, which was a mecca 5 years ago for the wealthy, now is a mecca for the homeless. I mean, this thing is flipping in front of our very eyes.
Well, and there is
you see one fact here that's interesting in New York too, and probably Chicago, which is people with lots of choices aren't loyal. It's politics in our city. If you have a lot of money, and San Francisco was a big concentration of wealth, as Manhattan, you can go anywhere. And if there's COVID and you're going to be locked inside for a few years, and you don't think this is the right place to be locked inside, you leave. First of all, you may have multiple residences and just go to another one. But second of all, you might just leave. You don't have to be there, right?
No, you don't.
It's the middle class people who stay. They're loyal. Maybe not because their heart is pure, but because their bank account is empty. They got to stay. That's where they are. And it costs to move.
Well, but all of this is causing an incredible amount of personal and social instability. I mean, you've had this serial killer in New York, the alleged serial killer in New York, alleged,
or several, possibly too.
Several.
Clear.
What is going on? Do you think that's tied to the economy or no?
I do, but I mean, I'm also an economist, so there's always the old bromide of give a guy a hammer and the world looks like a bunch of nails. But I will say this. There was a clear and massive dereliction of police duty in looking into this. And we're talking about, looks like when people started looking, they started finding. It's shocking how that works. But somebody was throwing away the bodies of horribly murdered young women, many of whom seem to have possibly been connected to sex work. And there's just a long history of who we spend more time protecting and who we don't. And serial killers are no doubt significantly mentally off. But this guy was a planner and seems to have been on some level smart, which I think some of these fellows are. And they pick people they know the society won't follow up on when they go missing. And he did too. And it's possible that one or more of these fellows have been doing this fairly out in the open, known to the police and other people for decades. And there's been no suspects. And there are questions around the local police force there that are unsettling. So, I mean, whatever happened here, a lot of young people were horribly murdered and then sort of laid out like trophies in a relatively small area for decades.
I mean,
without much investigation or follow-up.
Poor white young women who had no one really who wanted to
one
speak
man
up
or
for them.
two and a baby.
Yeah,
there's also been some infants and at least one or two males. I mean, this seems very active, this area, for dropping people. By the way, they're not very deep, and some of them are laid out, like in some kind of weird row.
That is insane.
Right? Like basically right in the grass off a highway, a pretty big highway. And, Long Island is the most densely populated suburban area in the U.S. So, yeah, the picture of the beach notwithstanding, it's got a higher population density than a lot of cities, that area. So it's not like no one's there. And people knew about it for a long time. And by the way, we only got to this moment of investigation because a few of the moms and sisters of one of the deceased people were complaining to the police that the killers were calling and taunting them for years. And there wasn't an investigation. And then a big effort was made around a documentary for Netflix, which did really well. Otherwise, the question remains whether it would have been another 10 or 20 years.
So if the issue had not gone Hollywood, that would have been that, right?
I mean, maybe it looks that way. And also, like, do you think if this was kids from a prep school or a college or wealthy kids or wealthy people would have been ignored that this was happening for decades? I mean, you never know, maybe, but it seems improbable, right?
You know, all of this is really being pushed to the surface now. I mean, you see who matters and who doesn't, you know, in the society. And, you know, and we're responsible for this, Max, Dr. Wolf. We're responsible. We allow this.
Just for your lit audience, I don't believe I'm personally responsible. But yeah, like, I do think, no, I understand what you're saying.
I'm just saying, as long as we allow this, as long as we allow it to be okay for people to be killed, and because we have the same problem here in Chicago, people get murdered on a regular, and no one looks for the murderers. This is.
But you had a fellow who was abducting and murdering little boys from low-income communities with no interference for the better part of 10 or 12 years. And it looks like he was only caught in the end, right? Because his partner in crime and him had some falling out. So I'm not sure that was like an investigative moment of brilliance or just sort of fortuitous chance. So, I mean, I don't think this is unique incident here. I wonder where my community who's so worried about the culture of life is on these things. I mean, if you're against abortion, what about the 40th trimester?
I don't know.
Should be of interest, right?
It should
be. This lady was in her 53rd trimester. That's pretty late term.
I mean, so where is all of this taking us? You know, I mean, because we have discussions about the money. They're not talking about people who are barely eating.
I think it takes us in weird directions.
Okay, help me.
I think we have millions of Americans. Many of whom were channeled into pretty ardent support of our former president, Donald Trump, because they believe he's in a mysterious war against pedophiles who they think are the Democratic Party. But like all conspiracy theories, at some point it has some connection to reality that's convincing to a lot of people, or it can't be a viable theory. And that is, we're kind of getting to the point of asking ourselves, are our wealthy and privileged people allowed to have deviant sexual desires acted out on the children and adults of low-income people who are desperate to make a living? We may not like that question, but if we have this level of inequality, that just always comes with it.
It does.
If one man's pocket change changes another family's life, you're going to have this, right? And again, I'm not making excuses, right? I'm not saying it's okay to be a serial killer because the income distribution is bad. All I'm saying is you're going to have these social perversions, which will filter down to personal perversions. And it's a question of income inequality. I mean, I remember working and living briefly in Brazil, and you'd think like guys from our group, the economics group, were getting mugged pretty frequently. It was usually violent, but they were getting mugged. And you realize, like, of course, I would mug me too, right? This guy can buy a small business for $300. I mean, it's worth it, right? It's an investment in his family's future.
Oh, Max, what's your closing thought, you crazy man, you?
Well, I mean, once you make it impossible to survive playing by the rules and you set up a winner-take-all society, you can expect violence and perversion. You've sowed those seeds, and so that's what comes up to the soil.
Here we are. Blessings to you. I know you've got a heart out. I'm sending you much love. White McKee.
Thank you.
Hey, God bless you.
Dwight.
Thank you.
All right. Saw your father last night with Cornell. He was fantastic.
Yeah.
Brother Wolf.
Oh, he had a heart out. But you know, you should definitely speak. Everybody, I'm sending you so much love today. So much love today. It's been great. I hope you got something out of the show. I will have David Hochberg back so we can continue to talk about cleaning up the credit. We can continue to talk about cleaning up the credit. I love you, everybody. I cannot wait to be with you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. I got to run out today. But thank you, Alex, for a great show. God bless you, everybody. Be safe and have a good one.